Hi, so in this video I'm going to switch to something that's totally different from the rest of the topics that I've been doing in this channel. So as the Monty Pythons used to say, and now for something completely different. And just a little bit of backstory. I've done visual astronomy as a hobby for many years now. Unfortunately, my eyesight is no longer that of a 20-year-old, and I live in quite light polluted skies. So with all that, I really haven't had much of a chance to do visual astronomy anymore. But then I discovered something called astrophotography, and I started on that journey last year. It's really great. I mean, I can now observe with ease deep sky objects that I could never have hoped to see visually. And so this has opened up a whole new slew of possibilities for this hobby. Now I decided to jump right into it with a piece of software called PixInsight, which is the software that I've got open over here. I had looked at many YouTube videos and various astronomy forums to decide what software to use because there are a variety of options that are available. Now I am on a Mac, so it limited that series, that set of options a little bit, but still there was quite a variety of possibilities. Now PixInsight seemed like kind of the go-to choice for the more advanced hobbyists. But I ran across a lot of different viewpoints that PixInsight was too difficult to start with, the learning curve was very steep, don't start there if you're a beginner. So I did look at some of the other software and started, but I was just never quite happy with the results, especially when I would compare to what I saw people doing on YouTube. So I decided to jump into PixInsight. And turns out that it's really not as bad as many people made it out to be. Yes, it takes a bit of time to get to learn it, and certainly it's going to take me a long time to get to know it and use it really well. And I'm sure that will take many years, and I'm sure most people are in the same boat. It's going to take them many years of working with PixInsight and working with astrophotography in order to, keep basically improving their results. But getting started was far easier than I had thought. So one thing that I wanted to do was to use my StreamDeck to group and control various processes and scripts available in PixInsight. One of the reasons is that it's a little tedious to, go and look for certain things in the menus. It's not that bad, but there are no keyboard shortcuts that you can do to bring up, for example, a specific tool. So you have to go through the menu system and navigate a bunch of menus or a very long list of items in a menu, same thing with the scripts, and so on. So I really wanted to be able to just set up the StreamDeck so I could just push a button and get, for example, a noise exterminator up and running, or WBPP, things like that. Now I knew it was possible to do. There's a YouTube channel called Paul Astro, and Paul on that channel found a way to open processes and scripts in PixInsight and basically do it using a multi-action in StreamDeck. But it used a technique where you had to program things like open up a panel, then use the tab, send a tab character to get into a search bar, or maybe two tabs, then type some text, then hit the enter key, those kinds of things. So yes, it could be done. It kind of worked, but I also had at the same time a lot of issues with it because it wasn't really very reliable, because it very much depended on the state in which PixInsight was currently in. So, if the panel was already open, then it wouldn't work correctly, things like that. So it really just wasn't working for me. So I kept searching for something else. So next, I stumbled across a video from a YouTube channel called View into Space, which is an excellent YouTube channel. And there's a guy there by the name of Sasha who basically set up PixInsight, or set up LoopDeck to be able to essentially integrate with PixInsight. Now, I don't have LoopDeck, so I couldn't, take a look at what he had done there. I also don't have access to his Patreon channel, so I couldn't look at the code either. But one thing he mentioned is that he was using AppleScript. So that kind of gave me the path forward to how to attempt to do this for StreamDeck. Now, of course, this is only going to work on the Mac. So once I knew that AppleScript was kind of the way to go, I started digging and figuring things out. Now, one of the main issues is that StreamDeck does not have the native ability to run shortcuts or AppleScript, unlike LoopDeck. So I think this is something that's really missing. I don't know why Elgato doesn't provide us that functionality. LoopDeck does, so it's obviously doable. So maybe, I don't know, maybe one day Elgato, if you're listening, you'll provide us that functionality natively. Now there are some plugins that are available. For example, I think there was this one here called Shortcuts. There's another one as well. I don't remember the name of it, but the long and short of it is that they're pretty old. They haven't been updated in quite a number of years. And more importantly, they weren't working. I run the most recent version of the Mac OS, so I have a feeling that there's something going on there, and no updates meant that I just couldn't get it to work. So I kept digging and trying to figure out how to do this using what we have available natively in StreamDeck without using third-party plugins, and using these shortcuts in Apple on the Mac, where the shortcuts are essentially running Apple scripts. So I was able to figure that out. Now there is an accompanying blog post available where you can actually find and copy-paste all the code that I'm going to show you in this video, as well as for quick reference later. I'll link it below. Basically, it's just a GitHub repo. So now let's dig into how I set things up. So the first thing is I have basically some icons, and these buttons over here, if we look at them, are going to actually be a web shortcut. It's this website over here. That was the only reliable way I could find with StreamDeck to actually run a shortcut. So this is the blog post, and if we scroll down to here, you'll see that this is the URL. So you can actually run a shortcut by using this as the URL. Shortcuts //run-shortcut (name equals), and then the name needs to be whatever the name is in the shortcuts. So for example, PixInsight-STF would be one. So I'm going to show you exactly how to get that, how to do all this, but basically that was the idea. This was kind of the breakthrough for me in terms of figuring out how I can run an Apple script from a button on the StreamDeck. The second thing was figuring out the Apple script that I needed in order to basically click on the menus that we have up here. So essentially I wanted to emulate clicking on process, all processes, and maybe the blink tool, right? So if I do that, it brings up the blink tool over here. So I wanted to be able to do that, but using AppleScript. So it took a little bit of back and forth and figuring that out, but this is what I came up with. So this is the script that you can use to basically, click on any menu item. So it's an Apple script, and essentially it's click menu item. And of course the name of the menu item. And then there's a kind of hierarchy, right? Because you've got, if we start from the top, you have the process bar item at the top, which itself contains a menu called menu 1. It's by index in this case, which itself contains a menu item called all processes, which we just saw, which itself has a menu. So I'll take the first one, which is menu 1, and then that has an item in there called blink. And so we click on that. So there's a little bit of extra things that we have to do. We essentially want to ignore application responses. And then the other thing too is that when you run the script using the StreamDeck, for some reason, the focus goes away from PixInsight. So in order to basically make sure that everything comes back as normal, we tell the application PixInsight to activate. So it should come back to the front. And that's it. That's the script, right? So we really have two pieces here. We have that script and we have how to run the shortcut. So let's actually go ahead and create a script and see how this works. So in this one, I'm going to want to, let's say, run under all processes. Maybe I want to run the, maybe we'll do the dynamic crop, right? So I want to bring up this particular process. So it's called dynamic crop. It was under process, all processes. So let's go ahead and create a shortcut. So I go to my shortcuts app and I'm going to create a new shortcut. I'm going to give it a name and I'm going to call it PixInsight dash, and this was the dynamic crop, like so. And I'm not going to use any spaces because we are dealing with a URL. So that name, remember, has to be in the URL. If you put spaces, you will have to URL encode it. So you have to put like %20. And I talk about that in the blog post, but I'm not going to spend time on it here though. So here I'm just calling it PixInsight -dynamic crop. There are no spaces. Then the other thing is we want to specify the type of shortcut. Well, this is going to be a scripting shortcut. So I click on scripting and then I go down towards the bottom and I find run AppleScript. And this is what I want. So I double click on run AppleScript and it basically kind of gives me a skeleton for the script. Now we're going to go ahead and replace all this. So I'm going to go back to the blog post and I'm going to take that script that I gave you here. So I'm going to copy the whole thing. This one is going to run blink, but we'll change that so that it runs dynamic crop. We'll go back to here. And once I've pasted that in, I will go ahead and hit this little icon here, which will compile, and that colorizes it. And it should also tell us if there's any errors. So here I'm still looking at the process, all processes, but I don't want blink. I just want dynamic crop. So dynamic crop, like so, right? And that's it. That's all it should be. This should run. So let's go ahead and test it. I'm going to click on the run button. That should open dynamic crop and then bring PixInsight to the front. Let's just go back to PixInsight. Let me close dynamic crop and then let me bring up the shortcut and now let's run it. And as you can see, PixInsight came back to the forefront and the dynamic crop opened up. So we can do the same thing. Let's say if we want a script, let's say we want to run the batch processing, weighted batch pre-processing, WBPP, right? This is a common one. Well, to do that, very simple. We are now under the script menu. So let me close that, go back to shortcuts. We're now under the script menu. So I'm going to change this to script. And for script menu, if we go back, it's under batch processing, right? Batch space processing. So let's go ahead and type that in. So this is this over here. It's called batch processing. I believe it is case sensitive, so be careful with that. And then the name of the item that I want to run. If we go back and look, it's called weighted batch pre-processing. So that's all I need to do here. So weighted batch pre-processing, like so. So again, I'm just going to run this so it colorizes it. Doesn't seem to be any syntax errors, and now I'm going to run it. Now, WBPP takes a little while to load up, but you can see it just loaded up, right? So we have basically a way of running things that are inside the menus in PixInsight. Now there are other things too, right? So for example, if you have a keyboard shortcut, like for doing an auto stretch, you can use a Command A, right? So you can always assign Command A as a keyboard shortcut inside StreamDeck. That's the easy stuff. What was more difficult to figure out, and I think what's more interesting, is be able to run any of these things over here from the StreamDeck. So now that we have the script, let me go back to what I had before, which was dynamic crop, simply because it comes up a little faster, right? So again, just to test it, make sure I didn't make any mistakes. There we go, it brings it up. What we next want to do is to go to the StreamDeck and set up the button there. So let me bring up this configure StreamDeck. And then what I want to do here, I'm going to go ahead and just create a new page. And I'm going to grab this website. That's what I'm going to do. So I will have to give it a URL. I can give it a title. I'm going to call it dynamic crop. And I probably want to set a nice font icon for it. So I'm going to go ahead and say set from file. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the PixInsight application on my Mac, go to the resource directory icons, and then under module, I should be able to find somewhere this dynamic crop. Now, you basically just go through each of those until you find the one that you want. It's not like it has its own entry over here. So basically, I just go through until I find the dynamic crop that I'm looking for. And there we go. So it's under geometry, dynamic crop. Okay, so I'm going to use that as the image. Now I don't like the dynamic crop text over here. So there's, I don't know, different things I could try and do, maybe like so. Okay, but the important thing is the URL. Let's go back to the website and let's grab that URL. It is this over here, right? The only thing is we're going to have to specify our name. By the way, this was what I was talking about. If you got a space in the name, like if you have PixInsight space blur exterminator, then you need to put this %20. So anyways, I don't have spaces in my name, so I won't have to worry about that here. So if I go back now and go to the URL. Now for the URL, what's the name of my script? It was called PixInsight dash dynamic crop, because that's the script essentially that I want to run. It's this PixInsight dash dynamic crop. Okay. All right. So that's it. This is the button. Now I know you can't see my StreamDeck, but I have it in front of me. So I'm just going to click the button on the StreamDeck and see what happens. And there you go. It brought up dynamic crop and I'm back in PixInsight. And of course, you can now apply this and make as many buttons as you want to basically give you a shortcut to any of those processes or scripts or other menu items in PixInsight. All right, that's it. So I hope you found this useful and thanks for watching. Clear skies and I'll see you next time.